this is the intro for our project. Ours is the relationship with Lewis and Tolkien. I have friendship. Relationship is friendship, same, whatever. Anyway, I'm doing it on their writings and how they affected each other. Gabe?
I'm doing the life of C.S. Lewis.
I'm doing the life of Tolkien. And I'm doing the English things and how it affected their lives.
Cameron?
And I am doing the Christian relationship between Lewis and Tolkien.
We're just doing what we do.
What? We are at Malden College right now because this is where Lewis taught, and it's also where Addison's Walk is, which is a really significant changing point of Lewis's and Tolkien's life, but we'll come back to that later.
I'm talking about the life of C.S. Lewis and how it paralleled with Tolkien in the sense that it helped him formulate their friendship. When in 1908, Lewis's mother died of cancer, and shortly after, his father sent him away to a private school in Oxford, along with his brother Warnie. This is relevant to his relationship with Tolkien in two ways. First, Tolkien grew up without a father, and Lewis basically grew up without a father in the sense that his relationship with his father was very estranged throughout his life. And secondly, they both lost a parent very early on in their lives. Next, Lewis enlisted in the war and went to training, or waited to be deployed in Oxford. And while there, he roomed with a man named Paddy Moore. And Paddy and him developed a good friendship and decided that to make a pact that if either of them were to die in the war, they would take care of each other's family. Paddy's family being his mother and his sister, and Lewis's family being his estranged father. It just so happened that later on in the war, Paddy did die, and Lewis did make good on that promise by taking care of Mrs. Moore and Miss Moore. And in this same way, Tolkien also lost a best friend in the war as well. So we can see how their lives parallel and help them develop a good friendship later on in life.
Tolkien was an extraordinary human being. His life is full of sadness and tragedy, but also love and friendship. But all of his life was leading up to writing his greatest book, The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien was born John Ronald Reuel Tolkien on January 3rd, 1892. Tolkien spent his early childhood without a father, and then his adolescence without a mother. His father died of sickness in Africa, and his mother of diabetes. He was sent to live under the guardianship of a parish priest after his grandparents stopped financially supporting the family. You see, they left the Baptist church in favor of the Catholic Church. His guardian, the parish priest, sent him to attend King Edward's School in Birmingham, where he met Rob Yelson, Jeffrey Smith, and Christopher Wiseman. They began a club called the TCBS, which stood for the Tea Club and Bavarian Society, which, funnily enough, was because they liked drinking tea at a bookstore called the Barrows. Tolkien kept in touch with these boys into his adulthood. They even met occasionally and discussed poetry and caught up with each other and the goings-on in the members' lives. Cut that there so that I can move. It went on to study English language and literature at Oxford University. He reluctantly signed up for the British Army after trying to avoid it completely. He contracted French fever and was released a little early. But by 1918, all but one of his close friends was dead, including Rob Gilson and Jeffrey Smith of the TCBS. This had a huge impact on his life. Not only did his hatred of the war and death deepen, but his soul was scarred by the fact that his friends were never going to come back. It is said that he began some of the stories of the trenches in France just to escape the pain that he was witnessing in his own world. Throughout battles and wars in The Lord of the Rings, his characters never let the others fall. Tolkien all of his life was looking for companionship, and he wrote his characters in Lord of the Rings almost in pairs. And he wrote his characters in Lord of the Rings almost in pairs, as in a completion of this line. Okay, so we were going to
general direction over there. But right now I'm going to talk about Lewis. Malden College is really important to him. It's where he taught, and it's where he was converted to Christianity. Before he was a Christian, he was an atheist. But even backtracking from there, he was born into a Protestant family. He was went to church growing up, but because he just went for the routine of it, he didn't feel like it was very Christian. His mom died when he was young, so his dad sent him and his brother off to boarding school. At his first boarding school, he tried to be Christian with his own faith, but he thought he was doing it wrong, so he just gave up on it completely. Next, he went to a small preparatory school, which is where he just completely lost his entire faith, his childhood faith, because of the school's patron. And then after that, he was sent to study under Kirkpatrick, who used to be his father's old headmaster. And unintentionally, because of the rationalistic views Kirkpatrick had, and just the intellectual studies they did, he unintentionally turned Lewis into an atheist. From then on, he was an atheist until his father's death, which is when he converted to theism into believing in a God at all. And after that, he struggled a lot with his faith, but then through his friends with Tolkien. That is Malden College, and if we had been on Addison's Walk, this would have been a really significant part of Lewis's conversion to Christianity. Lewis had a really hard time combining his rational side with his imaginative side, and that's one of the reasons he struggled so much with his faith. One night he went on a walk with Tolkien and his friend Dyson, and they talked to Lewis about Christianity and how Christianity combines this rational with imaginative in the form of story. Lewis himself, by the end of it, said, "The story of Christ is simply a true myth. A myth working on this in the same way as any other, but with the tremendous difference that it really happened." So this is where he was able to combine his imaginative and rational side to believe in stories and to believe in the story of Jesus Christ. Tolkien's faith was much different than that of Lewis's. He more or less grew up in the Catholic faith. His mom, Mabel, had the biggest influence of his life. His mother was grown up in a Protestant family, but she made the decision by herself to convert to Catholicism. Because of this decision, she was estranged from her family, and that meant financially as well. Because he was raised in the Catholic faith, his faith was more matter of fact, and it was just a daily part of his routine. His mom died when he was 12, and she made sure that his legal guardian was a reverend, so that him and his brother were grown up in the Catholic faith as well. So all of his life, Tolkien was a Catholic. Now I'm going to talk about the writings of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and how Christianity influenced their writings. Tolkien really didn't like Lewis's Narnia books because he thought they were overly blatant with symbols of Christianity. Tolkien completely detested allegories, and so in his writings of The Lord of the Rings, although it may not seem like a Christian work, all of his Christian allusions are kept them down in hints, and he didn't explain them. He wanted them to be subliminal for the reader. And he criticized Lewis for doing the opposite. But actually, Lewis argued that Aslan as Christ was not an allegory, but a supposal. It is what Christ would have been like if he had been in this imaginary world. It wasn't a true representative of Christ. Also, Lewis was a lot deeper in his writings of Christianity in his books than appears at just the beginning. Through Michael Ward's theory from the Honors Colloquium, he explains that the Narnia books are related to the 7 planets, and the 7 planets, the characteristics that describe them, also describe Christ. The reason he did this in this writing is he wanted to show that everything speaks of Christ, even the cosmos, even cosmology in the planets. He just wanted to show how Christ involves and embodies everything. He also subliminally wanted his readers to enjoy Christ, not contemplate him. This is why he wrote them as a fictional series. He wanted the reader to come to know Christ without realizing they were doing so.
Did you tell them about the straps?
The straps.
talking about the relationship of Lewis and Tolkien and how it impacted their writings. Their first impressions were actually pretty interesting. Tolkien told a student of his about Lewis that he said he was interesting, but you'll never get to the bottom of him. And when they first met, Lewis said of Tolkien, he seems to believe that literature is only there for the amusement of men between the ages of 30 and 40. He only needs a smack or so. So, the beginnings of their relationship were interesting, but as we all know, it ended up being beneficial for both. They disagreed on a few things, mainly the use of allegory, especially in Narnia books. Tolkien didn't like it, thought that he was way too pushy with the Christian message in those books. And Tolkien also didn't approve of Lewis's writings in theology, and thought that that should be left to professionals. But all the differences aside, yeah, now it's time for some product placement. Nothing helps me talk about Lewis and Tolkien like Coca-Cola. Where was I? Okay, let's see. They influence each other's works in a number of ways. Lewis was actually one of the first to read Lord of the Rings and critique that. And then one of the main ways they affected each other was in the writing of Lewis's space trilogy. They actually had a deal, Lewis and Tolkien, that Lewis would write about space travel and Tolkien would write about time travel. Tolkien never got around to writing his, but that's where C.S. Lewis got his space trilogy from, which is pretty interesting. Yeah. So, you can see how their mutual friendship benefited in their writings. It's a good thing, too. A lot of good books. Yeah. We're done. You can turn it off. Please turn it off now? You're not turning it off.
Literary group that Tolkien and Lewis were a part of. It was basically, here, I have the official description. It was a literary discussion group that raised the value of fiction and encouraged the writing of news. And this is where Tolkien and Lewis got their works criticized by the people. Lewis is Out of the Silent Planet, and Tolkien's Lord of the Rings were the first place where they were critiqued by their friends. Other people that were involved in the Inklings was Lewis's older brother, Morning, and some of Tolkien's other family members were involved too, as well as other authors. The Inklings was very influential in their friendship because it let them critique each other without